Hello there, people of the internet. I'm out here with my Kalashnikov. For anyone who is a YouTube reviewer, this right here is a semi-automatic firearm. This firearm is fully in compliance with YouTube's guidelines, and the magazine we're using is my hunting magazine. It's got a 5-round capacity, once again, in compliance with YouTube's guidelines. So I'm out here with my Kalashnikov, and I was wanting to just run some rounds at 100 yards, like really see where this rifle's hitting and whatnot, just burn some ammo down the range. I thought it'd be fun. And I figured I'd go ahead and I'd make a video on this since I'm since I'm gonna run ammunition downrange anyway. And I decided to myself, we have a topic that we have to discuss. We gotta talk. Guys, we gotta talk. We need to discuss whether or not lasagna is actually just spaghetti loaf, but more importantly, we need to discuss whether or not 7.62x39 is obsolete. Now, whenever I use the term obsolete, I am not saying that it is ineffective. There are plenty of dicks in the dirt due to 7.62x39, and everyone who, is in the dirt because of it will say, hell yeah, it was plenty enough effective to get rid of me, so obviously it's effective. Whenever I say something is obsolete, I don't mean that it can't do the job. I mean, hell, freaking, if I wanted to hit at 100 yards, with anything, if my goal was to put lead on target at 100 yards, I could do the same thing with a muzzle loader. But compared to the AK, a muzzle loader is just obsolete. Obsolete does not mean bad. People, whenever I say something is obsolete, they immediately go to, he's calling it garbage. No, I'm not. Obsolete simply means that we have better technology available to us to do whatever job it is that we're wanting to do better. And I think it warrants discussion. And I think one of the biggest things to pay attention to whenever it comes to 7.62x39 is what it is capable of and what it was actually designed for. Now, let's go ahead and get into some firearms history here. But before that, I want to go ahead and run a couple of rounds downrange. I guess this would be easy for my safety with. Run a couple of rounds downrange, and then we'll wander down there, see where the hell this thing is hitting. I'm pretty sure that this rifle's actually pretty zeroed, but I'm not positive about it. We're gonna have to be finding out right here. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin's my peacock. I got 4 of them. They're all named Kevin. Now, I'm surprised we're not hearing Kevin scream anymore. Normally he's going all out. All right, I think I got my hits on target. Weapon is clear, on safe. Okay, so 7.62x39. Back whenever smokeless powder was invented by the French, people were using black powder before that. Obviously, that's what came before smokeless powder. People were under the impression that combat was going to be taking place way farther than it actually is. That's why we see these bolt-action rifles, zeroed out at a minimum of 400 yards, where, I mean, that was like the maximum for the ranges that people were actually going to be fighting out with this smokeless powder. Well, during the Second World War, there were the idea of using an intermediate caliber cartridge to be able to use as a submachine gun for up-close personal encounters and, controllable enough for full auto fire, but still be accurate enough to be able to make hits on target out at the distances that combat was legitimately actually taking place at, an intermediate caliber cartridge. This idea was not exactly a new one, but it was one that was actually being implemented on a large scale during the Second World War. And it became very obvious that this was going to be the way of the future. The 7.62x39 was done. It was created in its SKS and AKM platforms with the idea of what the Russians had learned in World War II. And I mean, that's not bad. That's not a bad thing at all. They learned from what was going on and they adapted because of it. But they saw that combat was taking place on average around 300 or so yards, so they developed the AK-47's 7.62x39 to be able to effectively hit out to about 400 yards, but if you have any amount of firearms training, you can pretty effectively make hits out to about 500 yards with a 7.62 by 39, depending on windage and depending on what situation you're in. And there's some parameters that start to come into play at that distance with 7.62 by 39, but it's still absolutely doable. So 7.62 by 39, like, for an average shooter that has some shooting skill, 500 yards is probably about what you're going to be maxing out at before it starts like really dropping like a rock or really being affected by whatever wind it is that you're taking into account. And back during the time of iron sights and back during the time of a lack of modern technology on the battlefield, 300 to 500 yards was absolutely adequate. However, nowadays, combat is taking place in much further distances, depending on the environment that you're in. I mean, if you're in the jungle like I am here in Florida, then combat is, of course, not going to take place farther than 500 yards. But just because of the optics and capabilities of the firearms that we have nowadays, combat is taking place at much further distances than what was originally done in the Second World War, which makes sense. Technology gets better, we're able to make longer shots out on targets, and the enemy is able to do the same thing with their much more modern technology now. And now 500 yards is like, that's a normal instance. You know, during World War II, 500 yards was quite a bit. And now it's an average occurrence, especially with the optics and whatnot that we have available to us. 7.62 by 39 absolutely can make hits out on target at 500 yards, but it is much more difficult. We definitely have equipment and projectiles that are far more capable at making these hits out past 500 yards than the 7.62 by 39. We have issued primary rifles. I'm going to use that term. I don't know what that term is, but issued primary rifles that are capable of touching out way beyond 500 yards. They are able to do things much better than this older designed technology based off of what was seen in the 1940s. 500 yards, there are a lot of occurrences where 500 yards would be effective enough. But as time goes on and technology becomes more available, not just to us, but to other people as well that we might be facing on battlefield XYZ, we're starting to see distances get further and further apart, and 7.62 by 39 is just not designed as a long-range cartridge. Now, in an up-close personal encounter, it absolutely can do the job. But up-close and personal is not something that is... I mean, it's still happening a lot, but longer-range occurrences are happening much more often and much more frequently than they used to. And with this increase in what it is that we're seeing in modern combat, with what we see taking place nowadays with the technology that we have available to us, we have developed better projectiles and better cartridges and just better technology altogether to be able to handle whatever situation it is that we're wanting to handle. And 7.62 by 39 just does not lend itself to what it is that we're wanting to handle. I'm not saying it's bad. I know I'm going to get a bunch of people down in the comments. They're like, 7.62 by 39 is more than adequate to do XYZ, yada, yada, yada. But there's things out there that do better. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it can't do it. I'm saying we have things that do things better. And that is what it means whenever something becomes obsolete. I mean, hell, I got a 1951 Bel Air over there. Yeah, that's a 1951 Bel Air. And it runs and drives. And it absolutely can, you know, take me across the state of Florida if I felt like it. But I have things that do it better. That is absolutely obsolete technology over there. Same as the 7.62 by 39. For what it was designed for, it was adequate, but the design is no longer adequate to be able to handle what needs to be done, so we have developed new things. But whenever I say something is not adequate for what needs done, that's just because it literally was not created to be able to handle the things that we have to handle now. Like, if I needed to nail a piece of wood to another piece of wood, and I needed to cut the pieces of wood in half, so I had two pieces of wood to nail them together, I would use a saw at first. And that saw would be adequate to handle the job that I had to handle. But then whenever it came to actually nailing the two pieces of wood together, that's a different job That is different than what I was doing before. If I tried using a saw to hammer a nail in, it would not be very good. I would have to move on to the hammer. So that is a very good analogy for the situation we're dealing with. Whenever you think about it, like 22 long rifle, is 22 long rifle obsolete? I wouldn't say it's obsolete. In fact, 22 long rifle is one of the most common cartridges that we see nowadays, but it was designed for a very specific purpose. And we have things that do other things better, but it all depends on like the job it is that you're wanting to do. But even whenever it comes to the job, like any job that you choose a 7.62 by 39 to be able to do, we have better cartridges that do it better, and that is what I'm leaning towards. Hell, I can nail in a nail into a piece of wood using a brick, but that doesn't mean I feel like using a brick. That's obsolete technology. That might have been something people did 2,000 years ago, but nowadays, you're not going to go nailing a piece of wood with a brick. So hopefully this got some people thinking. I certainly hope that I didn't rustle too many jimmies, and I imagine that some jimmies are going to be rustled. People seem to have like this sentimental attachment to equipment, and I absolutely understand the sentimental attachment. I freaking love 7.62 by 39 and what it does, and since, you know, it's effective out to about 500 yards, that's way beyond even my capabilities to be able to run it. Hell, I never shoot past 100 yards. I'm over here at my 100-yard range, so I'm not going to be rocking anything past 500 yards, so 7.62 by 39 is absolutely more than adequate. But if I was in a modern combat area with a modern rifle and modern optics, and I was able to touch out to distances that are, you know, triple that of what the 7.62 by 39 could handle, which is something that is happening on a much, much more common occurrence nowadays with the technology that we have available to us, then I would want something that has a much better ballistic coefficient than a 7.62 by 39. Past 500 yards, these things absolutely drop like a rock. And if you wanna make shots out on target at a distance that is significant, you'd be holding your AKM model up like this and basically doing volley fire down on whatever it is that you were aiming at. Speaking of aiming, let's wander down there to the target. I see some shots on center mass, but I want to see where on center mass they are. Let's go check those out. Okay, here's our target. For the most part, we were hitting where I wanted to hit. We had one flyer, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds on target. That's a pretty good grouping. That's probably about 2 inches or so. With the AK-47 at 100 yards and cheap steel case tool ammo, that's not a bad grouping at all. And, well, we just had one flyer. I'm not sure which one this was, because I didn't really have the ability to tell. But this, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's... I wish I had some sort of measuring system out here, but it's about the length of my fingers, so that's the measurement that you guys are getting there. I imagine. In fact, I'm fairly positive that some 7.62 by 39 fanboy is going to go in the comments down below and talk about all the people that were killed by 7.62 by 39. A lot of people were killed by black powder too, you know, but black powder is obviously obsolete as well. That's not even a debate. So, whenever... I don't know how many times I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. Whenever I say something is obsolete, that does not mean it's bad. That just means we have better technology. And that's something that people don't understand. Like, just because something is obsolete does not mean that you cannot do a job with it. Hell, I'd rather take a pneumatic nail gun to drive nails and, you know, build a house than use a freaking hammer. I mean, you can use a hammer, but it's obsolete technology compared to a pneumatic nail gun. Alright, I'm going to plant some more 7.62 by 39 on our target down there. Before I get around to doing that, though, I'm going to go make some adjustments. I'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to take a couple of shots downrange. Put some lead on target, and we'll see where these 7.62 by 39 rounds hit. I'm not expecting to get the same grouping as last time. It's starting to get dark, and I'm definitely beginning to notice. The one thing that I really dislike about this AKM, this Kalashnikov, is my rear sight is windage adjustable. I'm probably going to change out the tangent rear sight on this thing. It's windage adjustable, and the windage adjustment is freaking loose and wiggling around, and I got probably a millimeter of play in either direction. And if I don't have this tensioned like just right, like there's a sweet spot whenever it comes to the windage tensioner, and if I don't have it tensioned just right, then the rear side will wiggle around and it really diminishes accuracy. So I just got to check that every couple of rounds to make sure that it's still properly tensioned, because the recoil is enough to knock it off of tension. Alright, I think that's all my rounds. Yep, okay, that is all of my rounds. Let's wander down there and see what we're dealing with. Okay, this time, not as good as last time. And I think I understand why. Last time I was aiming for, more so the bottom of the target, and we were hitting center mass. I wanted to see if this thing was shooting high, and it looks like it is, because we got 1-2 shots on target, but those are quite high. I was aiming center mass, so I'm going to go ahead and aim at the bottom of the target, and we should make shots on center mass this time. I'll have to adjust the elevation on this AK. I wasn't positive about it before, but this is a pretty safe assumption. So we're going to wander back there. I'm going to take care of these 2 marks right there. We're going to wander back. I'm going to aim at the bottom of the target, and I'd say about half a rotation of the front sight should stick me more on center target for actual aiming purposes. With the jimmies that are going to be wrestled with this video about 7.62x39, I ought to make a video on how 30-06 is obsolete, or how 45-70 is obsolete. These older full power rifle cartridges, I bet I could make videos on several of them and how they're obsolete. And I'd get a lot of angry comments down in the comment section below. And I'd have to specify, obsolete does not mean bad. Obsolete just means we have better things now than what was originally designed, a century and a quarter ago. A long time ago, those rifle cartridges were designed. And for the time, they were pretty good. They were replacing black powder cartridges. But by today's standards, that's a whole other ball game. Alright, I'm going to send a few more pills of this down at the target. I'm going to aim at the bottom of the target now. And we should make shots about center mass like we did last time. Alright, I feel much more confident about those shots on target. As a matter of fact, we definitely look like we were more in the center of the target. So yeah, we are firing just a hair high, and that's not uncommon on these AKs. I had this thing pretty zeroed in before, but I was using hollow point ammunition, and this stuff is just regular full metal jackets. There's nothing special about them whatsoever, but they do seem to hit a little bit higher than the hollow points that I use for hunting. So let's wander down there, have a look at it. By the looks of it, yeah, we hit pretty much right where I was looking at. Okay, as expected, here we are. The group is not near as good as it was last time. It's just getting dark around here, so I can't really see my sights all that well. I'm blind as it is, and the sights are black. I ought to paint the front sight like white or something, and then paint this target like a neon orange or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was aiming more towards the bottom of the target, so it looks like we're shooting probably about 6 inches high at 100 yards with this full metal jacket stuff. Exactly this is why I tell people, whenever they zero a rifle for hunting, zero it with your hunting ammunition. A lot of people will go out and zero a rifle with full metal jackets or something. I just dropped it around. Where'd you go? It landed in some moss and disappeared. There it is. But they'll zero a rifle with full metal jackets, and they won't realize that whenever you swap over to a different kind of ammunition, the zero on your rifle changes. And that's what we're seeing here. I swapped over from hollow point ammunition to full metal jackets, and I went from a right on target zero to shooting about 6 inches high. Whenever you change ammunition, your zero changes. And that's not something that a lot of people think about. They'll go out and zero with cheap full metal jacket, and they're like, all right, I'm good. Let's go hunting. And then they'll miss their shot or do an inhumane shot or something like that. And it's just a terrible situation altogether. All right, starting to get quite dark out here, but I'm going to go ahead and make some more rounds on target. I like
I like shooting at night because I can see like the fireball that comes out of the gun and all the sparks downrange and whatnot from hitting the steel target. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Well, I'm not positive on where all of those rounds went, but I'm fairly certain that a majority of them hit target. Couldn't quite hear them all. You know what? I'm down here anyway. I got 5 more rounds. Let's just use them. In all honesty, I'm likely going to make a video down the road about how 5.56 223 is also becoming obsolete with what it is that we're seeing on the battlefield today. Whenever it was invented for, you know, spray and pray the Vietnam jungle. But we're just not in that situation anymore. We need more precise, more accurate equipment. And we need to be able to make shots at farther distances than what 5.56 223 is able to do while still delivering the terminal ballistics necessary at the velocities necessary to achieve a proper stretch cavity upon impact. That is the whole niche of the 5.56 223 round. But that's a topic for another time, and there's a lot more that I want to get in with that. Right now we're talking about 7.62 by 39, and just all around in every aspect, we have rounds that do whatever job it is that you're picking, they do it better. 7.62 by 39 will still get the job done, but it's just not as good as some other modern cartridges in modern rifles. I love the clink of steel whenever I smack a round onto target. It's just, there's something about it. And I feel like I like slow moving rounds better whenever I'm clinking steel, because I can like go bang and then I hear the clink of the steel like half a second after that because the round's moving so slow. Typically whenever it comes to situations like that, you gotta kind of compensate for shooting at distances like this. Of course, we're just at 100 yards, but still. And there's another clink of the steel. And there's another. I think I got one more round. Yep. Or do I have one more round? Okay. There we go. Let's wander down there and see what our steel looks like. I was aiming around the bottom of the target, but we're starting, I'm not sure how well the darkness is showing up on camera, but we're starting to get quite a deal dark, and my front sight is really beginning to blur. Not only that, but now I got Kevin walking around in my line of sight. Let's go say hi to Kevin, shall we? Oh, I forgot to put the microphone on. Hopefully we didn't get any wind noise or anything. Kevin, you are literally right in the way of my range. Could you like continue to go that way, please? That'd be fantastic. I do not want to hurt you, and I don't think that you know what bullets are, but trust me, you don't want to get hit by them. Okay, so here are our hits on target. Okay, I'm not 100% positive about my count here, but I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think this is a 9th right there. And so we probably had one fly off the target here towards the left. I was trying to aim for the left side of the target as opposed to the right, because if I was going high, I wanted to hit this peg right here. So for the first couple of shots, I started doing center massing. I was like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and swap over to the left side of the target. So that's why that is like that. But yeah, rough count. 1, 2. There's 2 very clear hits right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This looks like 2 hits right there. So I'm going to say 6 and 7, 8 and 9. And number 10 probably went off somewhere in that direction. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, or just gentlemen, unless, of course, more of the YouTube reviewers is potentially a lady, in which case, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below. I imagine that somebody is going to be doing that. I imagine a lot of people are going to be doing that. 7.62 by 39. It is a fantastic little round, but it's just not designed for what it is that we are trying to handle nowadays. Like, for example, 9mm. 9mm is a fantastic round, but you're not going to be making hits at 500 yards with a 9mm. So there's a reason the United States is not arming its entire military force with 9mm
submachine guns or PCCs or anything like that. It's just not what we are encountering. The capabilities of the round is just not in the scheme of what it is that we actually need on the field. And for right now, what it is that we actually need on the field, 7.62 by 39 just is not capable of performing at the distances that we need. Now, in the future, who the hell knows what's going to happen? We might find ourselves in some situation where we're in constant urban combat, and the 7.62 by 39 could be phenomenal, because maybe combat will be taking place at like 150 to 200 yards. I mean, 5.56 would be an excellent round for that right there. But maybe there's, I don't know, some heavy body armor that 5.56 can't get through because it's a small round and we need something heavier. Or maybe there's mechanized things at that point, and having a heavier mass bullet would be more effective. In that case, 7.62 by 39 would be a definite go-to for that situation. I mean, I'm just making things up at this point, as I'm sure that other people have figured out. But for what we need right now, 7.62 by 39 just will not do the job. So it is an obsolete cartridge in comparison to what we are doing currently. I will say that. There might be a time later on, who knows, if we're fighting robots and, you know, the fast speeds with the terminal ballistics on gelatinous material of the 5.56 just does not matter. And you need something heavier that, you know, does more damage on target to synthetic material like a 7.62 by 39, then it wouldn't be so obsolete. It depends on what it is that you're trying to use it for. And that's the big thing that I want to get to this. Everything is designed with a specific purpose in mind, and if you use it for that purpose, then fantastic. I mean, if you're using 7.62 by 39 in a specific distance, then it will absolutely, you know, shine with what it is that you're trying to achieve. We have better cartridges that will do the same thing better. They're lighter weight. They have, you know, better ballistic capabilities, but the 7.62 by 39 will still get that job done. And for the most part, the targets that we would be firing at are, of course, gelatinous, but if there is a robot uprising, who the hell knows what's going to happen? If there is a robot uprising at one point or another, then hey, guess what? The heavy 7.62 by 39 might come in clutch, and it might get around to saving us. It might end up being, you know, the perfect round for handling, I don't know what might come in the future, but for right now, it's not. So, thanks for watching, folks. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Description down below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and go check that out. And I'm going to go inside before it gets so dark that I cannot see. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. And of course, thanks for watching. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.